Okay, our first modeling step is to create a region for our buildings to reside in, and a method that I like to use is splines with an extrude modifier. And we need to be thinking big. We'll make this very large, maybe 3 or 2 miles across, so a camera can fly across it, or a vehicle, without seeing the edge. And I like to make an irregular area for no reason other than that it stimulates my thinking. Just putting a rectangle down just seems a little bit passive to me. So let's get started with this. Let's go to the command panel, the Create tab, and instead of geometry we're going to Shapes, and we're going to use Line, but let's make sure we've got the top viewport active. I'm right-clicking on it. I'm using Min-Max, which is the button in the lower right corner to maximize that. And I'm going to turn on the snaps toggle before I actually make the line. It's on when it's yellow. S is the shortcut for it, to toggle it. Right-click on it, and let's get this grid as tight as we can. Click on the home grid, and turn off Inhibit Grid Subdivision below grid spacing, and pull down major lines every nth grid line down to the lowest number, which is 2, and then you can close that. It's still active. By the way, make sure grid points in snaps is all that's active. Close it, but it's still yellow. Select the line creation tool and just make a shape that's somewhat interesting. I know that sounds sort of vague, but what I have in my mind when I make this is I think of a map of, say, Manhattan, for example, where there's all these interesting irregular edges going on, and I don't really know why they're there, but you know, they're architectonic, they're straight, but sometimes they're also at an angle, and it gives my mind something to think about. I'm also aware that in making things like this, you might have noticed if you've done some image research, is that sometimes these cities have waterways or they're up against the sea. We're not necessarily doing that in our project, but it's definitely nice to give yourself as many options as you possibly can with this sort of thing. And at the very least, it's just fun to do it this way. I'm going to make it. I'm not worried at all about any sort of perfection here, because I know I can close that spline and go to the Modify tab, drop down this little plus here and go to Vertex. I can always change something. I can go to the Move tool. It's Select and Move. At this point I can turn off the Snaps toggle. I can change anything I want here. There's, really nothing that can't be done. I'm using the Control key to, add to my selection. And, modifying this as I see fit. And, it doesn't take much to make something that just gets your mind going, as I said, and gives you, something to work with, which is really what this is all about. I need some juice. Okay. There we go. Bring that up a little bit there. Excellent. Okay. Let's exit the sub-object by clicking on the yellow. Drop down the modifier list and hit E 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times and hit Enter. I'm selecting Extrude, not Face Extrude. Alt-W is the shortcut for Min-Max. So I'm looking at my perspective view, right-clicking on that, and maximizing again. And now I can see I've got a pretty neat surface to work with. Once again, it can always be changed. Like even with Extrude applied, I can still go down to the vertex sub-object of the line, turn on Show End Result, and I can change this as I see fit. The only thing that you don't want to do is be going up and down on Z, because that could make a mess. Okay, we're going to do more with this later. We're going to cut in roadways and all that, but for now, let's save what we've got. File, Save, and let's name this Sci-Fi City 001.max and hit Save. I had already had a file there, so I'm just overwriting mine. I'm going to explain next time we save why we're naming it 001. We're going to add incremental names to the file a later date. Okay, let's stop here and then go on to the next step.